that Jonathan as well. Yeah, I think we're good for the next slide, Lily. So a little bit about who we are. We're a locally owned and operated company out of South Burlington, Vermont. And so we really will tackle just about any project for both residential and commercial. And so we do a lot of residential roof-mounted systems, fixed ground-mounted systems. We do heat pump installations, battery backup, and battery storage installations, and getting more into doing EV charger installations as more and more people in Vermont adopt electric vehicles and heat pumps. We're also seeing larger and larger systems coming along with that as well. Our goal is really very much to take an educational approach with our customers. And so Paul, our president, really kind of instilled this in me from the start, is that, and a lot of the time, solar very much sells itself. And as long as we're explaining all of the ins and outs, all of the details well to homeowners, then the numbers really kind of speak for themselves at the end. And it really just makes a lot of sense for most people. Like it says here, we don't ever do the hard sell. We're not trying to force a sale or fudge the numbers. We're very comfortable saying, we're very comfortable letting people know if they have a good location for solar, if they don't, and are really just being transparent with the information as far as designing systems goes. And so I think we're ready for the next slide here as well. So the kind of the basics of solar. So essentially the sun shines and it hits a photovoltaic panel, which then excites electrons, which leads to the flow of electricity. And so really the idea is that we are installing panels either on your roof or in a field, designed specifically for your home to offset your electric bill. And really the goal that we have most of the time is offsetting 100% of people's electric bills, or as close to that as possible. It's a way for people to generate their own power on site, have their own source of production. And really the way that this works in Vermont is through a system called net metering. Probably 99% of the systems that we do.
Hey, Marcus.
Yeah.
Let me just remind everyone to mute their microphones during the presentation. There is some sound interference. So if everyone could just check and make sure, that would be great. Continue on.
Perfect. So yeah, probably 99% of the systems that we install are net metered systems. And so in Vermont here, we use a process called net metering that works with your utility. And really the idea behind net metering is that we live here in Vermont, and like today we had some snow, and in the winters, the days get much shorter. The sun is much lower in the sky and we get lots of snow. So very little of your annual production from your solar array actually comes from the winter. And so the idea behind net metering is that we want to size your system such that you actually overproduce with your solar array in the spring, summer, and fall. And as you overproduce, any of that excess production from your system will actually return to the utility company that you have. It will spin your meter backwards and it builds you up a supply of credits. Now, theoretically, the idea is that we want to build up enough of these credits where it will last you through the winter months during times of lesser production. And so really the idea is you're kind of stockpiling these excess credits spring, summer, fall. And then you have this credit bank to pull from during those months in the winter when your home will be consuming more power than the solar can generate. System sizing is really one of the most important parts of the whole process. And while my job on site with homeowners is to explain how solar works and the products we use, the values we offer, it's also very much about sizing the system. And so we really look to custom design solar proposals for people based on their electric bills for both their current usage and maybe future plans as well, on-site efficiency measurements, and then sizing the system from there. And the reason that system sizing is so important is because you don't get paid for having an oversized system. It doesn't make sense to just throw as many panels at your house as possible because you don't get paid for having excess credits at the end of the winter. And so these credits last on a 365-day rolling basis. And so really the idea is that you want to build up just enough credits to get you through the winter, but not too many that you're left with excess at the end of the winter season. A question that we get all the time here is the difference between off-grid and grid-tied solar. And so the majority of the systems that we do, probably 99 plus, are grid-tied net metered systems where you are essentially using the grid as your battery bank to store the excess production in the summer. Off-grid systems are where you completely cut ties with the utility grid. And so you actually have no connection to the utility. We do a couple off-grid systems a year. We have an off-grid specialist. This typically is a very large lifestyle change for a lot of people. And so most of what we do is grid-tied net metered systems, but we do install battery backups that can be added to your grid-tied system. And so a little bit about the process of going solar and what that might look like. So if anyone's interested in learning about solar or reaching out, they'll typically give us a call to our team here or fill out one of our forms online. They will discuss a little bit about what they're looking for, share an electric bill, and if they're interested, can schedule an on-site solar evaluation with one of the 3 advisors that we have here, myself or 2 of the others. Or if you're over an hour and a half away, we'll typically start with a ballpark phone call where we can have the whole conversation and pull together kind of some basic rough numbers based on our conversation there. And really at an on-site visit, one of my first questions that I ask homeowners when I sit down with them is what their main motivation for going solar is. Whether it's more grid independence, we can look into batteries. If it's really just about stabilizing their monthly payments or reducing their costs, we can kind of tailor the system and custom build a system that will meet their expectations and can help them solve their if or their why of why they want to go solar. And really the way that we kind of look to make solar work for a lot of people in Vermont is we look to eliminate the electric bill. So we look to size a system to offset 100% of the electric bill and replace that monthly electric bill essentially with a monthly solar loan. And that's where we partner with VSECU with a couple different loan options. And depending on your site and the system sizing and how everything comes together, if we can get your monthly solar loan similar to your monthly electric bill, then you're really very similar out-of-pocket monthly costs. And that's where solar really kind of sells itself. Most people who go solar, they own their home and they understand the value of paying for a mortgage instead of paying rent to a landlord. And it's kind of the same idea with your electric bill. And so it's a way to stabilize your monthly costs. The monthly payment for the solar loan will always stay the same. It's never going to increase, whereas the electric bills are constantly increasing. Utility rates in Vermont rise about 2.5% to 3% per year. And so when it comes to sizing these systems, asking people why they're looking to go solar, and then after explaining kind of how net metering works, how we just did here, I do a site analysis and an electric bill analysis. And so typically most electric bills in Vermont will show the last 12 months of consumption on the second page of the electric bill. What we then look to do is we'll find your annual kilowatt hour consumption, how many kilowatt hours you use in a year, and then have the important conversation of where you see your usage going. So if you have plans to buy an electric vehicle in the next year or 2, if you plan to install heat pumps, if you're doing a renovation project. And so the electric bill gives us a really good idea of your baseline usage. And then we can kind of adjust the system sizing for where you anticipate your usage might go. And so that's how we determine your usage. As far as siting the solar and the projections for the production, we then do on-site efficiency readings for everything. And so if you're looking at a roof-mounted system or a ground-mounted system, we have solar or shading analysis tools. And we can determine, so for a roof, we would determine the orientation, the pitch of your roof, and then a shade analysis. So the percentage of year that that roof receives sunlight. We then take those factors and plug it into an online program called PV Watts that takes into account the local weather data for your area, It takes into account snow cover, wiring losses, a host of other factors, and comes up with a production factor. So this tells us how much we get out of each panel, because obviously a panel in the middle of a field is going to produce a little bit more power than an east-west panel with some shading. And so we can determine how much power we get out of each panel. We can from there determine how many panels we need to offset 100% of your electric bill from there. Once we have all these on-site information, I would pull together a proposal for the number of panels needed to offset the specific electric bill, and then send that over to the homeowner in an email along with the specification sheets and some details about our conversations on site. I then follow up with the customer typically, walk them through the proposal, make sure that everything makes sense, answer any questions that they might have. And if the numbers line up, whether it's the monthly payments for VSECU or they're ready to move forward with the system, we would then pull together a contract for them, send that along. And once we have a small initial deposit and a signed contract, we would then begin the process of moving forward with everything that comes along with that. So we take care of the permitting, the scheduling, the installation. And then after the system's fully installed, it's built, and you're set up with a monitoring application on your phone, I would actually, or one of the advisors would come out for a final walkthrough of the system, where you sit down, you go over the equipment on your house, you walk through the monitoring application, and answer any other questions that the homeowner might have. Whether we're looking at roof or ground mounted systems, we're working with very high-end equipment and some of the most quality solar panels and inverters that are on the market. Our solar panels typically come with 25-year warranties on the product as well as the efficiency. And so most of the panels we use are guaranteed to be at minimum 86% of day one efficiency at year 25. And the product itself, so the structure of the panel, the metal frame, glass, the electrical connection, that's also warranted for 25 years. We then work with a microinverter technology. And so where every panel has its own inverter, converting the DC power the panel produces to usable AC for the appliances in your home and for the grid to accept. These microinverters also come with 25-year warranties. And so all the products for the system essentially are warranted for 25 years. And as a company, we then have a 12-year workmanship warranty. And so for people who are concerned maybe about making penetrations in the roof, we cover roof penetrations and roof leaks from our work for 12 years. We cover labor for any repairs that might be needed or defective equipment. We cover the labor for that, as well as the electrical connections for everything also. Ready for the next slide. So how solar works as an investment. This kind of comes back again to asking the homeowner what their main motivation for going solar is. If it is purely financial motivation, then we can really look at sizing a system that offsets exactly 100% of their usage if they don't plan on any sort of growth. And we really kind of frame the conversation from that monthly payment perspective. Because for a homeowner, I mean, if you can, instead of giving your money to your utility company every month, that's lost money. You'll never see a return on that investment. If you can have that similar monthly payment, but it's going towards a solar loan, now you're investing in your own source of production, your energy independence, and financing something that also increases the value of your home. There's a bunch of studies out there saying that solar does increase the value of your home. Here is 4.1% of the home's value. It also certainly makes a home a more attractive prospect for any new buyers as well, for when that time period does come. It's now a house that has one less utility bill. And if you ended up pairing it with an energy storage system or a battery device of some sort, now the house essentially has a whole home generator as well that allows the solar to operate during a grid down scenario and gives you that peace of mind during any sort of power outages moving forward. We also do install heat pumps as well. And so for people who have outdated heating systems or are looking to reduce their costs in home fuel heating oil, whether it's oil, natural gas, propane, any of those, we all know that the costs of home fuel heating oil has almost doubled in the last year. And so we're seeing more and more people go the direction of electric heating, whether it's a heat pump or some other form of electric heating. And as the advisors, we can then look into how we would upsize the system to account for how that would increase your electric bill. And so even if we don't have that data, we do have some really good information and data on how to predict how many kilowatt hours a year a heat pump system would add to your home. And we can then size the solar array to offset both your electric bill, but also then your fuel heating costs. And one of the cool things about solar is the higher your electric bill in that sense, the faster your payback period and your return on investment. Because now you can offset not just your electric bills, but also your fuel heating costs. If you have electric vehicles, you can offset your driving costs. And going about it as kind of a holistic approach like that, that's where solar really kind of sells itself and where solar really starts to make a lot of sense. And we've seen that as a company that has been growing quickly as well. I think when I started 3 years ago, our average system was right around 24 solar panels. And this year, I think we'll expect our average to be around 32. And that's just from the continued adoption of electric vehicles and heat pumps. Otherwise, I tried to not get too much into the VSECU financing side of things or some of the incentives that I know will be covered upcoming. But otherwise, I think that that covers my portion of the presentation here today. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus. I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan Dowds, and we can start your section of the presentation.
Terrific. Thanks, Lily. My name is Jonathan Dowds. I'm the Deputy Director at Renewable Energy Vermont, or REV. REV is the trade association for the renewable community here in Vermont. So we work to make it easier, cheaper, etc., for Vermonters to engage and build out their renewable portfolio. And excited to be collaborating here with two of our members on this webinar today. Building just briefly on Marcus's comment about the 25-year expectancy for solar panels. Earlier this year, I did a panel on solar panel recycling, and there was a gentleman on that call who had purchased one of the original solar panels that Jimmy Carter put on the White House in the late 70s as a curiosity piece. And while it wasn't getting 86% of its electricity, it was still generating power. So I thought that was just pretty darn cool. These systems do have a long life expectancy. Okay, so to kick it off with how to pay for solar, I think Marcus covered the net metering side of things very well. Don't need to go into that in any depth here, but just to reiterate, the solar power that you generate each month offsets the electricity that you use. When you are generating more solar than you're using in a month, that's generating bill credits that you carry forward. And as Marcus said, you scale that system so that across the year, you are using and generating as close to the same amount of electricity as you can, either erring on generating a little more or a little less, depending on if your priority is minimizing your greenhouse gas emissions or maximizing your savings. The fine print that I always share with people when they call me is that your electricity bill never goes to zero, because there are a few what are called non-bypassable charges. So just for being connected to the power grid and for supporting programs like Vermont's efficiency programs, there are some charges that you can't zero out. Just like people to be aware of that so that they're not surprised when they see those charges. One of the things I love about working with the Green Mountain Solar team is that, as Marcus said, they're not interested in a shifty cell. So, they're always really straightforward about information like that as well. That's a thing I do like to highlight. Next slide, Lily. Some other tax advantages that you should be aware of, or tax implications for a net metered system smaller than 50 kW, which is everything that you're going to be putting on a house is going to be smaller than 50 kW. It shouldn't have any impact on your statewide education property tax or municipal property tax. They are exempt from those taxes. They're also sales tax exempt. So when you are paying for the installation of one of these systems, there's no sales tax associated with that. So some nice benefits that do help make solar more economical for Vermonters. The big action, however, is on the federal side. So Lily, if we can go forward to federal tax incentives and rebates. A lot of this comes out of the Inflation Reduction Act that passed this summer. There's a great calculator here that lets you dig into, I'm going to be talking mostly about the solar and storage, but there's a whole bunch of other electrification related options where you can get either a tax credit or a rebate and upfront discount. And Rewiring America has a great little tool that lets you go through, look at all of those different things, whether it's an electric stove, whether it's a heat pump water heater, see how much money you can get when it kicks in, both on the tax credit side and the rebate side. So that's rewiringamerica.org. And if you search for Rewiring America and their IRA calculator, you'll be able to find that without a problem, or the link is in this slide as well. Next slide. So the biggest single piece for most people is the federal tax incentive, which is a tax credit that covers 30% of the installed cost of a solar system. This is going to be available through 2032. It's up from 26% and was trending to expire, but as I said, the Inflation Reduction Act increased and extended these tax credit availability. It also applies to battery storage systems, whether they are directly paired with a solar system or whether that's a standalone investment. There are also some energy efficient home improvement tax credits, and they cover 30% of the cost of a list of eligible home improvements up to $1,200. So if you have the ability to, spacing out these home improvements can allow you to take advantage of the credit in multiple years. And it includes things like electric panels, which sometimes need to be upgraded as you add heat pumps, electric vehicles, solar, all of those things. So being able to cover those costs partially as well is very nice. One thing to note is that these are non-refundable tax credits. So if you do not have a federal tax obligation, you cannot take advantage of these. That's an unfortunate drawback of the way they're set up. It will not make your tax burden go negative, as some will. So one drawback, but if you do have a tax obligation, this covers close to a third of the cost of your system install, and that's pretty big as far as making the economics of this work for homeowners in Vermont. Next slide. I just do want to highlight again that there are a bunch of rebates available for what I would call complementary technologies. So a heat pump water heater, a heat pump HVAC system, an electric stove, again, some of the electrical upgrades within the home to make all this practical, weatherization, all of these have some new rebates associated with them under this high efficiency electric home rebates program. Again, the graphic here is from Rewiring America, and you can really dig into the different things that are eligible here. As Marcus mentioned, you really get the most bang for your buck when you are capturing that money that you are spending on fossil fuels, whether that's gas into your car, oil into your furnace, and bring that onto the electrical side and then offset it with solar. So that's really the way to go. Just a quick note that 100% of the cost for low-income households and 50% of the cost for households that are up to 150% of the area median income. For Chittenden County, the area median income is about $110,000. So if your household income is less than $150,000, you would qualify for that 50% rebate. So again, a great way to help facilitate this transition. Next slide. For people who are interested in going solar at their business, there is a very similar investment tax credit available on the business side of things, again, for solar and storage. For systems that are smaller than 1 megawatt, there are very few restrictions on these systems, and that would be most everything you would see in Vermont. If you had a project larger than that, there's some additional criteria related to labor and manufacturing standards, but that's unlikely to be of importance to anybody on this call. So again, the base here, as with the residential systems, is a 30% tax credit, and that goes through 2032. Again, it says the value of this is limited to businesses that have a tax obligation that's at least 30% of the project cost. It does include the cost of interconnecting the system, so attaching it to the grid through your local utility, which can be costly. And there are some bonus credits for domestically manufactured materials and for siting in low-income communities, though the IRS is still hashing out exactly what those are going to look like. One thing that's really exciting is that nonprofits, including schools, municipalities, houses of worship, etc., are now eligible for a direct pay option in lieu of a tax credit. So if you were a nonprofit and you couldn't take advantage of that 30% tax credit, you were sort of shut out previously, but the IRA has created a provision to provide essentially a rebate in lieu of that tax credit. Again, this is something where the IRS is still working out the final rules, but this will be available in 2023 and really opens up the benefits of solar to a whole host of organizations that might not have been able to make it work in the past. So the Inflation Reduction Act has been really laid a very positive groundwork for both families and businesses to invest in solar in Vermont. Paired with net metering, as Marcus said, the systems can really sell themselves. They can have some really great benefits that are pretty self-evident, pretty low risk. I believe that's all I have on my side, so I'll yield to Lori. My contact info if you have additional questions.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to join this group. And my name is Lori Fielder, and I'm the V-Green Program Director at VSECU. We're a credit union based in Vermont. Lily, why don't we head to the next slide so we don't spend too much time here and we can get to the information on financing. And what really, if you're curious about who VSECU is and you don't know, that stands for Vermont State Employees Credit Union. We celebrated our 75th anniversary this year. Credit unions are different than banks because they're financial cooperatives. We're member owned, and we have a volunteer board of directors. Members have a voice, and in case you haven't heard yet, we've just announced that we'll be our member vote was last week, and our members voted to move ahead with a merger with New England Federal Credit Union, which is also a Vermont-based credit union. So we're excited to be partnering with them as of January 1st as one combined organization. So we have regular, all the typical, banking products and services, checking and savings accounts and money market accounts. We have mobile and online banking. So our main priority is to serve our members, and we certainly have an environmental mission statement that guides our thinking and our sort of our ideas around partnering with the clean energy industry in Vermont to provide affordable financing options for members who want to participate in the clean energy transition. Next slide. So some of the loans that we've been offering for several years, and we have some special options in terms of the pricing of them for Green Mountain Solar customers, are these options here. The investment tax credit, we have a 20-year option and an energy equity loan. So these loans are really structured to align, as we heard in the beginning, they've got these, these purchases have a high upfront cost, but there's a lot of ways to help with that through the investment tax credit if you qualify for that. In terms of having a tax liability enough to be able to monetize that. And also other incentives like, no sales tax and so forth. So really, when you look at financing and the cost of financing and the cost of the solar, it really makes it so that it's pretty much offsetting what your current expenses are. Unless you're making some decisions around electrifying your heating and adding battery storage. So the investment tax credit loan, or we call it the ITC loan, we have two terms for this, a 12-year and a 7-year term. It provides an initial 15-month period of reduced payments to allow you time to go ahead and file your tax return, get your tax credit back, and then you apply that amount, which for the most part should be 30% of the loan amount, to the loan principal, and then we'll work with you to re-amortize the loan so that you can continue that low payment that you had in the beginning. So that's a very popular one. That one is not secured by the home or anything. So for folks that maybe don't have equity in their home, that's a great option. We also have the 20-year energy improvement loan. This one does not have that feature with a lower initial payment period. And the reason for that is really to make it nice, consistent, even payments over the course of the 20-year term. Remember that your as you heard from Marcus, your warranty and guarantee around the system are really 25 years. So again, you'll have the loan paid off within a 20-year period. And again, for both of those products, they're unsecured. So we're not taking security in your home, and the max loan amount is $60,000. The last option is the energy equity loan. This is as low as 2.99%. This is a 15-year term. And it's really for those folks that can have the equity in their home and want to use it for, for their project. And so all of these loans are really available for people that have a credit score of a minimum of 680. We do have other rates available if you qualify for those based on their individual credit standing. Next slide. So I just wanted to demonstrate it's really important to understand when you're financing something that you're paying for that cost of funds, right? So the very best way to get your very best return on investment with solar or anything that you are purchasing is to pay for it outright. If you have the 25 or 30,000 or whatever your system comes up to be, if you have that, that is in cash or in savings, or you're in a position that you can put that whole amount down, obviously that's going to be your best return because you're able to cover that cost right up front and have no financing cost. If you choose instead to finance the system, which most people need to do because very few people do have that amount of money sitting around, this is to just demonstrate what I'd pick two terms, the 12-year unsecured and then the 15-year energy equity. The top one is the unsecured investment tax credit loan. The way it would work, if you borrowed $25,000 and you qualified, you'd receive that 3.24% rate. The initial payment for month 1 through 15 would be $146.99, and all of these are estimates. When you get your final, you'll get your numbers when we do your loan documents. So $146.99, and if you choose to not put down anything on your principal in those 15 months, say you get your tax return, you did get a return, but you choose instead to use it to pay down other high interest debt, or it's February or March in Vermont and you decide instead to go to the Bahamas and use that money for that, it's totally up to you. We don't have some automatic process. It's totally up to you when you get that tax refund back to decide how much, or if you want to bring the whole amount in. So it's important to kind of think about that ahead of time. So if you do decide to bring it in and apply it to your principal and we re-amortize your loan, your loan payment would go up a few dollars just because of the way the amortization works. It's not an exact science, but then your loan payment would remain at $150 for the life of the remaining life of the loan. So your interest rate doesn't change, nothing like that. And again, if you choose not to bring in your principal pay down, your interest rate doesn't change. So you're not being penalized in any way if you choose not to do this. It's totally up to you. But it does save you, if you look at the finance charge, if you choose not to apply your principal pay down with that loan, it's about $5,500 in interest. If you choose to do that, to bring it in and re-amortize your loan, you've saved, $1,500. Then you're paying $4,000 over the life of the loan for that financing charge. So that's how that one works. The 15-year energy equity loan is a similar process. Again, it's a 15-year, so consistent payments of $172.53. If you decide that you do want to bring in a principal amount, 30% of the loan balance, and this we use month 12 in this case because it's just a different loan. We will do this for free for equity loans one time. And that's because we have to file new paperwork with the town when we, because this is secured to your home. So we would have to, record some new paperwork with the town. So we'll do that once for free. And so that means that you could reduce your payments for the rest of the term, 14 more years, down to $117 or $118. So that's basically, and then again, you can see that saves, not quite a couple of $1,000s, but quite a bit there. $6,000 in finance charge if you choose not to bring in a principal pay down amount from your tax credit, and $43.67 in finance charge if you do choose to apply that. So that's completely, like I said, it's up to you. It doesn't automatically, if you do apply your principal pay down, it doesn't automatically re-amortize. You must tell us to do that. Otherwise, we just think you're making a principal pay down to pay off the loan sooner. So we will work with you, and we do send emails to remind you that, particularly with the ITC loan, that month 15 is coming and you'll be seeing a change in payment unless you apply that tax credit amount of 30%. So that being said, one thing I like to remind people of is remember the tax credit is on eligible items. So the 30% is taking into account items that are eligible for that investment tax credit, such as solar and the battery storage. Some people choose to maybe, do some repair on their roof, which might be covered in the loan. Or they choose to put in a heat pump, but you're not going to receive, up until now at least, a federal investment tax credit amount for that. So it might be that a portion of your loan isn't eligible for that investment tax credit. So you might not get the full 30% of the loan amount to put back down on your loan. So you just have to remember that any portion that you get, though, say instead of getting, maybe you expect 5,000 back and you only get 3,000 back, just come in and apply whatever you do get back and we'll re-amortize to lower the payment. Some people don't get it back all in 1 year. They get it over 2 or 3 years. That's fine. We'll re-amortize the unsecured loan multiple times if needed. Again, that energy equity loan we'll do once. So try to get as much as you can at that one time for no cost. And then after that, we still will do it for you, but we would ask you to pay for the additional filing charge with the town. So that's really just a demonstration as to how financing works and how, of course, I think anybody can recognize that any of those dollar amounts on those monthly payments look a lot like an electric bill. If you equalize or kind of average an electric bill over the course of a year, my bill looks a lot like that. So as you can see, this can easily offset the investment that you're making. And then once the loan is paid off, then you're only paying, as Jonathan explained, that amount on your electric bill that's for those non-bypassable expenses, like the efficiency charge and the charge that your utility will be putting on the bill just to be able to offset their poles and their infrastructure costs. So next slide. It's just a really easy process. I like to remind people that you can just apply right online. And we have Green Mountain Solar has a shared web page with us. So it's VSECU.com/Green Mountain Solar. Of course, you heard Marcus talking about how to get started, and then you'll submit your online application. The application walks you right through that process and what you need to put in there. It'll ask you about who you're working with. It'll ask to share permission. If you would give us authorization to share loan status information with Green Mountain Solar, just really for the purpose of streamlining your experience. We take care of all of that communication. We will send you a pre-approval email that will have next steps. If you need to join the credit union, it'll explain how. And we will then work with Green Mountain Solar staff to understand when you're going to be closing on your loan. And it's really tied to when the installation will be happening. We don't want you to have an electric bill and a loan payment simultaneously. So what we do is we work with Green Mountain's installation staff to say, okay, so let us know when they're 2 to 3 weeks out from their installation. And then we work with you on your closing process and documentation. All of the closing documents are online. Or if you prefer, you can come into a branch. We have several. We have 9 around the state. We have one in Williston. We have one in Burlington, Central Vermont, Southern Vermont, St. Johnsbury, whatever. But you'll be able to, most people find it much easier just to do the digital closing. Then we will fund the loan amount that Green Mountain Solar asks for upfront at that point. Once your installation is complete, they'll reach out and let us know. And then we release the final amount to Green Mountain Solar that's been sitting on hold in your account until we're sure that it's complete. So that's really the process. It's pretty streamlined and easy. Next slide has our contact information. You can reach out to us. We have hours during the regular workday, and we have some Saturday hours. Just reach out to us at the Consumer Lending Department, or the home equity side has an email as well. And we've got experienced lenders that have been doing this a long time, and will help you through any questions you might have in the process. So yeah, thanks for inviting me, and I'm excited to hear if anybody has questions for us as a group. I'm happy to do our best to answer those.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. I've got, a couple more slides for everyone. I just wanted to make sure that everyone has the contact information. So I'm just going to stay on this slide for a few seconds. If anyone wants to copy down some more information that you might have missed previously. But other than that, just a big thank you to all of our presenters. It was great and super informative. Moving on from that, we are going to go into about 12 minutes worth of a Q&A. So I'm going to exit out of the screen share. Like I previously said before, feel free to either drop any questions you have in the chat, or use the raise hand option on your Zoom application. Give it a few minutes for everyone. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I've looked at solar at my own property. Talked to 2 different contractors. Stationary systems don't meet my current electric need, and tracking systems do not as well. So community solar is what appears to be my best option and approach. Do any of those does VSECU and Green Mountain Solar, not so much probably Green Mountain Solar, but does VSECU work with folks who are buying into community solar?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, and great to see you again. Jeff and I go back. Yeah, the problem is, and probably Jonathan can speak more to this than I can, that there's not a lot of community solar being built right now in Vermont. And we do finance it. We're happy to finance it as long as, it's a little bit of a caveat there, though. As long as the off-taker is the owner and they're receiving like the tax credit, that's when we're good with financing it for people. Because if it's something where it's a, subscription type of situation, that's like month to month, that just doesn't fit with our financing design. But I don't know if Jonathan has any information about who is doing community solar in a way that, people can really buy in, unless it's a community-based array.
Yeah, it's a challenge right now. Just as background, the Public Utility Commission, which controls the net metering rate, has kind of targeted these solar arrays, saying that they're more costly than they want to participate in. It's really unfortunate because it is the only way that a lot of people can access solar, including when it's in that subscription model, when low-income Vermonters can access solar. So it's something that we're constantly pushing back against. And if you're talking to your legislators and want to put in a plug for community solar, please do. Integrated solar applications did have a project that came online earlier this year. So if you're a Green Mountain Power customer, I believe there's still slots open on that, though it may have filled. Integrated Solar Applications is that company. And then there are a few communities, like a few individual towns, that are looking to do it themselves. Peacham just got the okay to put in a 150 kilowatt system. I don't know if you have to be a Peacham resident or not to take advantage of that. And Rygate is another one that is looking to do that. So another approach would be, going to your town energy committee and trying to get one of those projects off the ground. I think, when they have really strong town support, that makes the permitting a little bit easier, though. As I said, the economics of it are a little harder to meet because the Public Utility Commission has ratcheted down the compensation for those systems. By way of contrast, New York lets developers there build systems that are up to 5 megawatts. So that's 10 times higher than the largest net metered system you can do here in Vermont. And community solar there is going like gangbusters. So it's really a policy decision, and doesn't have anything to do with the work that our developers can do. That's squeezing that out a bit.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
That's a question. Marcus, you might have mentioned this. What's the typical size for or like an average size for a residential project that you're doing these days?
So like I said, the average size system has definitely changed over time. I think the average system that we're going to see this year is right around 32 or so panels, so right around 12 kW. That's kind of the average that we're seeing across the board. This varies greatly based on what the size of the home is, how many people live there, whether they have electric vehicles, electric heating, all of those different factors. And again, for anyone who's interested in the quotes, we custom design them based on your electric bill and your need there. And then our proposals, we just kind of wanted to get this in as well. We list the various loan options that Lori listed and the monthly payments that you would have for a system like that to then compare to your electric bill as well.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, well, I think if our audience is satisfied with our presentation and it doesn't look like there are too many more questions or last minute comments, we can probably end a little early today. Just again, thank you everyone for coming out and listening to our presentation, and thank you everyone who presented today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Good to see you, Lori.
Yeah, you too, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.